We have not only great sponsors to thank, but we also want to thank you all for joining us today because, again, ticket proceeds are in support of APNET. Like to now take a moment, because I'm actually really excited now, to introduce our speaker for today, Dr. Chris Lewis. Dr. Chris Lewis is a family medical doctor with UC Health. He also serves as the vice provost for academic programs at the University of Cincinnati. And on top of that, he is also the founder of the Village Life Outreach Project, which is a nonprofit that works in Tanzania. But I don't want to take all your thunder and share all about you. I would like to take a moment to introduce our speaker, and if we could give him a silent round of applause.
All right, can you all hear me? I think I successfully unmuted. You hear me? All right, perfect. My name is Chris Lewis, and I am ecstatic to address this august body today. I'm ecstatic to be a member of APNET. I want to congratulate Prince and all the other folks who have made APNET a reality for 10 years and with a bright future for the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. I was in some of those preliminary discussions way back 10 years ago about what APNET could be. I saw Prince and others' vision, and once they invited me to one meeting, it was a wrap. And I've been involved, whether intimately or peripherally, ever since. And it's the other day I was asked to rate some of the 10 best decisions I've ever made in my life, and my involvement with APNET made it to the list. So I think that tells you a little bit about the value that I place on this organization. 10 years is a historic feat, particularly when you look at where we are now in 2020, a global pandemic, a racial reckoning in this country. And I know that many of you come from other countries, but now call the US home. No matter where we come from in the African diaspora, I think in this country, it's important to realize that Black is Black, and we are all brothers and sisters. We all have the responsibility and duty to show other people how much we love and care about each other collectively and the world as a whole. You all have seen, just like I've seen on the news, things that have been happening with people with our skin tone being slaughtered and gunned down. And a lot of the country doesn't differentiate between someone from Rwanda and someone from South Africa and someone from Cincinnati, Ohio, Bond Hill, like me. So the catchphrase and the motto for this 10-year celebration, embracing diversity for a better community, it's something that is near and dear to my heart. I can remember times in my life when Africans and American Blacks weren't always united. I went to college in Boston, and this was in 1996, and it was my first genuine interaction with a whole bunch of Africans, and I made friends with them. We had a couple of Africans in my high school. I went to Finneytown High School, so Dr. Abraham Osimbawale, his daughter Yeti, went to my school, and I was thrilled about that. But in terms of a group of Africans, my first experience was when I went to college, and what I realized is that a lot of those Africans didn't necessarily want to associate with American Blacks. And again, this is a long time ago, and there were valid reasons for that. But I think we're in 2020 right now. And I think the work that APNET does to bring us all together has been critical over the past 10 years, is more important and more vital now than ever before. And particularly as we look at the future of this country, the future of this world. The whole world has been put off kilter. Global pandemic, racial discussions, recourse, reckoning, whatever you want to call it. What I see from my line of sight is that if there ever was an opportunity for change, now is the time, but it is going to take us banding together. And you could have said the same thing back in 2008 when we had our first African president. And I say African president deliberately because Barack Obama was more African than he was a descendant of slaves, of Black Americans. We had 8 years of a president who, in my opinion, and I don't want to get too political other than to tell y'all all to vote. We had a president who, because of his position as a global citizen, really transformed our country. But the stakes are higher now than ever before. And we, as a collective diaspora of people, have the opportunity to continue what was started then and even before then and move it to the next level. And I'm so thrilled. You know, part of my job, I have two main jobs that I get paid for. One is a family physician at the University of Cincinnati, UC Health, where I see patients from over 20 different countries, many African countries, for primary care needs. And I've been doing that now for 20 years. And those 20 years have been some of the most blessed and rewarding experiences of my life in terms of my position of being able to help people, but also learn from them and learn from my patients. But whether you're talking about patient care or my other job at the university, which is Vice Provost for Academic Programs, the need for diversity, equity, and inclusion, and for banding together of people that are underrepresented is more important now than ever before. And people are listening. The world is listening. I was on a call yesterday with the president of the UC Foundation. A year ago, the UC Foundation implemented its new campaign called Next Now, which is a play on words for the strategic direction of the University of Cincinnati, which is called Next Lives Here. They came out with this campaign that's supposed to be over the next 10 years. They want to raise however many millions of dollars, I think 2 billion, in fact, called Next Now. And they talked about impact and inclusion, or sorry, impact and innovation. But they left out that third I of inclusion. And when pressed by me and a whole lot of other people at the university, a year ago, they didn't give us answers that we really wanted to hear. But I'm delighted to tell you that I think what is happening across the country, and certainly at the university, based on the meeting that I had yesterday, is where a year ago they left out the word inclusion as part of this $2 billion campaign. Yesterday, we had a meeting and they're talking about 20, 25, $50 million part of that campaign should go towards diversity, equity, and inclusion work to give scholarships to underrepresented minorities, including Africans, to elevate and hire and train and promote faculty members, to provide education to the next generation. Again, the world is listening, and it is on us to collectively come together as global citizens of the African diaspora, to keep this change going. And to do that, I strongly believe that we have to include the voice of the young people. I saw somebody on a call with kids in the background, and I hope they can hear the festivities tonight, because they're going to take some of that and internalize it. They may not remember it, but seeing a group of, Black people and African people on the screen is something powerful and something that should not be forgotten. I mentioned 2 paid jobs that I do. My third job, which is unpaid, is I founded and run a nonprofit organization called Village Life Outreach Project. We started in 2004 after my first trip to Tanzania, East Africa, in 2003. I took a trip scheduled for a month where I was going to be working in a hospital, which was one of 2 hospitals that serves an area of 500,000 people. And for many of you who might know Tanzania, current estimates are that Tanzania has 1 doctor for every 25,000 people. So I went to this country, my first trip to what Black Americans like to call the motherland, the continent of Africa. And I thought, because of my Western training as a physician, I was in my 3rd and final year of residency training. So I was an MD, but still completing my training. This was my last month of training. And I went over to Africa thinking I was going to change lives and save the world. The first patient that I saw was a pregnant woman who was a mother of 3 or 4 kids. and she was trying to walk about 8 hours while hemorrhaging in labor to get to the health facility where I was stationed. And she died along the way, as I'm sure many of you in your home countries have experienced, if you have home countries that have healthcare inequities like the US has healthcare inequities and whatnot. My point in bringing up the story is that at the time, I was trying purposefully to connect to my African brothers and sisters and thinking that I had something to offer them. And it was naive. That experience really awoke inside of me an understanding that there's not really a whole lot that I as an individual have to give, but I am on this earth and I can listen to and connect with many, many other people. And my relationships with people in Tanzania, my relationships with all of you in APNET have forever changed my life and made me more aware of my deficiencies, my weaknesses, in addition to my strengths. And it all kind of centers around this idea of our 10th anniversary celebration, embracing diversity for a better community. I think to have a better community, we need to realize the value of not just ourselves, but more importantly, the other people in that community. What Prince and the founding members of APNET and all of the people in APNET that continue to carry on the tradition today have established is something that we should all be proud of. I know there are other organizations across the country that might do something similar, but this that we have in Cincinnati is truly special. As you can tell from the mayor and his recent announcement calling these days APNET days in Cincinnati, it is truly special. It is very, very timely. I am so proud to be a part of this organization, to call you all friends, to call you all brothers and sisters. The value that APNET has in our community, not just for professional and networking, but for education, for community building, for camaraderie, for spreading love across continents. It's unlike anything that I've ever been a part of. Y'all have been supportive of my organization, Village Life. You've been supportive of me. I've learned so much from all of you. My only ask is that you keep it up for many more decades to come. And with that, I just want to say thank you to APNET. Thank you to all of you who tuned in. I greatly appreciate your support. I greatly appreciate all that you do. Sending love here from the Lewis household in Amberley Village to all of you all, and just so excited to celebrate 10 years and looking forward to many, many, many more decades. So with that, thank you all very much, and I look forward to enjoying the rest of the festivities.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lewis, for speaking and sharing just so much of not only with what you do, but again, being a part of APNET since its inception a decade ago. So we'd love to thank you personally and on behalf of all of APNET, thank you. And also, round of applause, because a lot of great things are coming out of not only, like you mentioned, the University of Cincinnati, UC Health, but the city of Cincinnati, and being a part of that, I feel like APNET has really done wonderful things. But in order to continue celebrating all that APNET has done, we are now going to remind you that the auction is still going on right now. So if you haven't checked that out yet, again, the link is in the chat. You can find several items to purchase and or bid on in celebration. So also, thank you for shouting out Dr. Mayor Cranley's proclamation of APNET Day. And we'll go ahead and play that for you now, so you too can see what he said about APNET. Are you able to hear?
No, Prince volume.
Prince, I think we would love to see what Mayor Cranley is saying, as well as his enthusiastic movements. Yeah. But while that's going on, this is a perfect opportunity again to see what is being auctioned and place a bid. We have something for literally everyone. So we have, like I mentioned, jewelry, accessories, actual art from different countries in Africa. We also have something for sport lovers and things that will definitely not only support APNET, but make you a little bit more stylish. So check that out if you have yet to do that. If we're not able to get Mayor Cranley's proclamation played, we of course have it all over our social media. You can find it. And if you haven't already followed us on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn, you can find the actual proclamation there as well. And it'll be a great chance not only to stay constant to what APNET is doing, but also volunteer and or give back, not only today during the celebration or this week during the celebration, but throughout the year, and then hopefully like the next 10 years and then a century. So if you haven't already, go ahead and check those out. We'll make sure that those links are placed in the chat. So, Prince, are we able to get the actual, there we go. All right, so again, as we are preparing for the next portion, check out the silent auction and the proclamation, which is on our social media sites. And then we'll also then go ahead and enjoy a cultural performance from, if we could, enjoy a live cultural performance from a group that is local in Cincinnati, but bringing some of the best moves from all over the continent, specifically Nigeria. Ijo Ugu, which is a performing arts company. And then while that is going, you already know what I'm gonna say. Check out the silent auction.
Proclamation today to celebrate the 10th anniversary of APNET. Now, I'm not going to read the entire proclamation, but let me just read a few of the whereas clauses. Be it proclaimed that whereas the city has long considered itself an inclusive community striving to welcome immigrants, and whereas the city recognizes how immigrants and refugees contribute to a stronger local economy, and whereas the African Professionals Network, APNET, serves more than 800 individuals yearly through support, professional development, strong advocacy, and innovative entrepreneurship. And APNET has remained the premier professional organization for strengthening the potential of African immigrants in our greater Cincinnati. Now, therefore, I, John Cranley, Mayor of the City of Cincinnati, do hereby proclaim October 22nd to the 24th as APNET's 10th anniversary days in Cincinnati. Thank you, and good luck.
Awesome that we were able to hear from Mayor Cranley's the proclamation of APNET Day, which I think is fairly exciting, not only to be recognized by our peers, but from the actual leaders in the city. So we will be able to get the DJ Garley. we'll do this when we can hear. If you guys can do this when you start hearing the music.
Thank you very much, APNET. It is a pleasure and always wonderful to be part of the community. Ijogo is part of the community, and we are here for you for every event, dance classes, workshop, and of course, thank you so much, APNET, for choosing Ijogo for the 10th year anniversary. Thank you so much, everybody.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much once more. Silent round of applause if you know how to give a reaction. There's applause or clapping at the bottom, but thank you once more. That was a great performance by our dance group. Can you hear me, everyone? Okay. Awesome, awesome. Okay.
We can hear you.
Awesome. That is great to hear. That is great to hear. And hopefully you'll be able to hear as well the next person who I'd like to introduce, Funke Oladele, who is the founder and host of Beyond Africa Magazine and host of BAM podcast. So Funke, if you can hear her, or if you can say hello so that we can know that everything is all right on your end, let us know.
Hi, hello.
Awesome.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, we can hear you.
Okay,
We can hear you.
I wanted to say something still. Hi, everyone. It's an honor to be here. So wonderful to be with you guys. And congratulations again on your 10th year anniversary. I know that it's such a monumental celebration, looking at what you're coming from. I've not been part of the organization for that long, but the few years that I've gotten to know about this organization, it's just been wonderful. The very first time I came to you guys' event, which was in 2014, I believe, it was awesome. I had the time of my life. I mean, it just felt like you were amongst family, and I just think it's great when you have this African organization. Like, it doesn't matter where we come together, we just fit, right? I just love that. Congratulations to the founders, people who have been part of this organization over the years, and everyone who is still working towards building it. I know it's going places. So thank you for this opportunity to be with you all. So my session today, without wasting so much time talking, is about an article that I believe you all may have gotten. Probably not all have gotten to read it yet. And even if you've gotten to read it, probably not everything. Right, because it's quite a long read and you have to be like in the mood and you really have to be like feeling the content to really want to get into it. So I'll save you all of that stress today. I will do a little bit of a summary. Hopefully I do it justice. And if not, I have Susanna here to help me out. You know, she's smiling. All right, so so the title of the article today is Young African Norwegian Women and Diaspora, Negotiating Identity and Community Through Digital Networks. It's a long one, but I'll explain what it means to you in a little bit. So I'll start off just by reading the short abstract, and then I'll give you a short, thank you, somebody's just sharing the document here. So I'll read the abstract and then we just dive into the conversation. So this is going to be just like an open discussion, but I want to, sorry, I don't know if I'm able to share. I just started sharing without taking permission. Okay, can't find my screen. It disappeared on me. This happens when I'm using two screens. It just plays me. Okay, here we go. Are we able to see the article?
No.
Nope,
I'll stop here.
I can share it.
So I just want to read the article, the abstract, so everybody can just follow along.
I can see it.
Okay, good, thank you. So again, this is the title, Young African Norwegian Women and Diaspora. This is about negotiating identity and community through digital social networks. So this article explores the ways in which Norwegians of African descent explore their relationship with the African diaspora through multimodal practices of digital online media. Through the stories of two young Norwegian women, the article examines how community ties and ways of belonging are envisioned at both the local and the transnational levels, and at the intersection between online and offline spaces. These book stories are drawn from a larger digital ethnography of the African diaspora in Norway. The article underlines the need to locate understandings of diaspora and the digital within relations and positionalities in specific national contexts and spaces. So the article aims to add to the existing literature on how diaspora in general and African diasporas in particular are technologically mediated. So all of that grammar to say that, you know, just in a nutshell, what this is trying to help us, what it is trying to cut to is to, you know, basically bring in the context of these Norwegian women, this discussion about how online media or social media kind of helps us find our identity, or how we negotiate our identity digitally, and also comparing it to locally, right? So your identity in person within the context of your physical community, and looking at your identity online, right? And how that promotes or contributes to this old cultural identity that we all hold. So you and I, we all in Africa, in APNET, or the people who are affiliated with us in one way or the other, you're probably already exposed to the African diaspora culture, story, background, and we all have beautiful backgrounds and stories of how we migrated. So this whole movement of globalization and people displaced from their actual home, so whether first, second, third generation, you know, of African descent or immigrants, we all have that. We all have that immigrant background to some extent. So as we identify with this, I just wanted to give that background so we can relate with the story. And particularly the women captured in this article, one is named Maddie and the other one is Naima. So the first woman, so okay, before I go into that, so in Norway, basically, they believe they try to erase this whole concept or the story behind, well, they're not kind of upfront about their history of slavery involvement, of being involved in the slave trade, okay? So they try to omit that in history, and compared to the US, right, where, you know, it's very obvious, and the European countries too, you know, it's very obvious. You hear about this major places or, you know, continents and countries involved in slave trade, but Norway tried to underplay that or not even talk that they were involved in it. So, but there's a large group of Africans there. So this article also brings it out to some extent, but I think over the years they've done some research and realized they were involved in slave trade, and that explains some of the Africans or people of the African descent in their country. So specifically now going to Maddie's story. Maddie is a woman who was born to Congolese parents, right? And they had to, so the Congolese parents were diplomats that had to move to their country. I think they were on exile. Yeah, they were on exile to move to Norway. And going there, she was in her mid-teens. And at that time, she just had to kind of blend into this new culture. It was new for her, being in a place that was probably predominantly white. She had to, like, the kids there had to get used to her, like, were fascinated with her hair and wanting to touch her hair, and just having to, like, she's having to explain herself and just find where she belonged in that environment. So I think over the years, she eventually, probably growing up, she found Tumblr, she found MySpace, I believe, so social media platform, and Facebook, where she could just kind of come out. And then she was able to connect with communities, like African communities online, where she could kind of easily express herself, where she felt like she belonged and she was free about her identity. And this article also talks about how the digital online media kind of breaks through barriers of the local. It kind of breaks through all of that. It connects you globally. You're able to connect with people back home. You're able to connect with your friends in other countries. I'm able to connect with APNET, even though I don't live in Ohio. So I think those are part of the great opportunities we have to kind of break some of the local barriers, right? At the same time, just focusing on social media, it's also a social space that's not quite where we live in. It's not the physical space, and the article talks about the dynamics of that. So the other lady is Naima. Naima's parents, her father is a Nigerian, and her mom is a white Norwegian woman. So for her, it's a little bit more complicated, right? So is she black or is she white? Is she Norwegian? Is she African? So even amongst her family, she always had that struggle with identity. So, and where does she really belong, right? She's not fully white, not fully African. She can't really say she's African because she wasn't born there. So like she had to struggle with all of that. And she also talked about how she was able to find just that free space online to express herself, identity. And she said how sometimes she would find content that brings out her thoughts, right? She would have some thoughts or some opinions that kind of talks about racism, because she was a little bit treated differently about where she fit. And when she found content online to share, she would find that some of her white friends or her sister's white friends would complain that, hey, that's a little bit controversial. And keep in mind, in Norway, they don't really talk about these things because it's almost like it doesn't exist. But people are experiencing things. And when they speak up about it, it makes the white people uncomfortable. And we can probably see some of these in recent times here too, with all this Black Lives Matter, bringing things out in the open. Now there's more discussion about it. So I don't want to go too much into, the discussion, but I want us all to dissect it. But giving you that background helps you to find the story, like really get into the story so you can know how to respond, how you want to relate, how you want to express your thoughts about the article. So she was able to find that, Naima was able to find that online space where she could really identify with her African roots and express herself, share pictures that have to do with African roots, and not having to explain and not feeling like, I'm hurting anybody. Well, sorry if I'm hurting you, but this is who I am. And she described herself as a shy person. And you can probably see those these days, right? A lot of people that you would normally see who don't talk, and they're very loud on social media, So I would like for us to kind of talk about this. And I've come up with a few questions for us just to get us started. But I'd like to get your thoughts, your initial thoughts after reading this article or hearing this summary I've given you. What are your initial thoughts about this article or this story? So please let's respond. I enjoy this session because I can easily call people out, but I don't want to have to do that. Please, let's just be part of it. Give me your initial thoughts about this article.
All of you are mute, but you can go ahead and unmute yourself if you would like to go ahead and begin discussing.
Yeah, or you can use the chat box too if you're shy. Thanks to social media and technology.
True.
Anybody wants to get started?
Okay, so I'll get us started. My name is Sosina Erko, and coming across this article, my first initial thought was such a microcosm of a world described within the two different characters, but in a grander scheme also could be translated. So from my experience, for example, most of my young adult, young life was spent growing up in Ethiopia, but then half of my life has been spent living in the States. And it is hard. It is hard to sort of, you feel like you're not in home is always where your heart is, and wherever it is whatever memory I have had. So for me, home is always back home in Ethiopia, but living here in the States for as long as I've lived, whenever I go back, home becomes this foreign world, foreign concept where I don't know the language. I mean, I do speak the language. I can fluently communicate. I can read, write, but I still cannot communicate because there's, folks my age speak a whole different type of colloquial language, and there's the way I think, the way I conduct myself is very different than the local folk that are there. But then when translating my life here, folks that are my age, when we chat, I can't connect either, because there's the gap where there are certain pop culture references that I don't understand from the 80s or the 90s, because I wasn't born and I didn't grow up here. So it's and also it's not only that, but also, Cincinnati has its own customs and cultures that you have to sort of have folk around to sort of teach you what those are, to sort of know. So I think for me, but I don't see that as a deficit. Yes, I may not necessarily feel at home there, or this doesn't feel home at certain points, but I think there's a certain type of understanding, because you start to sort of become very introspective of the way you conduct yourself, because you want to fit in at any point. When you're if I'm in Ethiopia with Ethiopians, I have to okay, what are they doing? What's the new thing going on now? So you sort of have to do this like really quick upscaling of things that you want to sort of ingest and know so that you could sort of fit in. And then you have to do the same thing here too. So you're sort of straddling two worlds at the same time, almost like walking a tightrope in a way. So that's what it reminded me of, reading that article, as you mentioned.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, how are you finding yourself in Missouri?
I really find, well, my name again is Charlene Najmike. I was actually born in the States. So I was born and raised for the most part in the States, but having, to go back home, during summers and when I was still young. So within my home, everything is very African, everything is really Ghanaian, everything is, but, outside the house doesn't play the same. So I found myself similar to you, Susina, where you were like, I can do this, but not well enough to fit when I go back to, let's say, Ghana or into spaces where it is only, people who have been here like for a less amount of time or do not relate to like the culture. And even then, when I'm in this culture growing up, it's still not reflective of everything that I am or know or how I am. So I felt in a place like longing for a place where I felt 100%, comfortable, accepted, and involved. And that, again, was through social media that I was able to kind of get this sense of like, okay, it's not just me. I'm not the only person who feels like this when I go back home to Ghana or when I'm home in the States. So I was able to find a lot of those communities the communities of people who felt like me within their communities, and from that had that community online. So I definitely related to some of the girls and having a longing for a place of like, man, I really want to be in a place that I don't have to explain something or understand everything that's going on. And online happened to be that place, not necessarily the back home in Ghana or when I'm in Ghana back here in the States, but actually the online place being that community and that place where in the search for found that I was like, okay, it's not just me, making me feel more comfortable in those two spaces and communities.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing, Charlene. Is there anyone else who has any thoughts?
Hi.
Hi.
So my name is Modupe, but I changed it to Mo because people really murdered my name. I came here.
We're talking about that.
I came here in January. So basically, I can relate to what this person is saying in the sense that I actually don't have much friends that are from other races or anything. All my friends are actually Nigerian. Some of them are Kenyan, some of them are Ghanaian. So I would like to meet more people that are from a different race than me, but I grew up all through my life with people that are similar to me. So it's weird a bit when you now meet them. So yeah, I can relate in to what she's saying. Like she could not really find out where she is, whether she's African or American. But I feel in everything, everybody's still a human being. Everybody has diverse culture. So when you actually think about it, it's not really the race that matters, it's the person that matters that I'm speaking to. So you can always relate to people in one way or the other, no matter what. So yeah.
Right. Thank you so much, Mo. Thanks. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Celestine Ngasa. The way I relate to the article, even though I haven't read it all, just by listening to you, it's mostly the way my kids feel. I do have now a 22-year-old that is having an identity crisis because we moved here when he was, I believe, 3.5. So, and the house is basically he's raised as African, and of course, when he go to school, he's American and so on. He never knew color or African or whatsoever. He just know that he's a kid and he has friends. And he happened to go to a college where is in one of the college in the country that is in majority white. So, and he saw the difference. That's how I'm gonna call it for the first time. And he hasn't recovered since.
Oh.
So it's a struggle for some of our kids. So it's something that with everything happening around now, if you have sibling or if you meet another African, talking to the youth that are on this platform, if you meet another African in the college campus, please connect and reach out, because I'm sure that if my kids is facing that, a lot of them are going through the same problem. So it's just something that I'm learning. So
Thank you so much, Mel. Thank you for talking about that. Charlene has a comment, right?
That is very, when I looked back at the article and I noticed that it was written in 2014. And so I'm thinking, okay, in 2014, I would honestly say that I wasn't even really comfortable I was African through and through, like, everyone's like, oh yeah, that's a girl, she's African, but I'm like, no, not really, but okay. Until I went to college and I started interacting more with people who were, either international students who had come from Ghana and had been, so it's just like I connected with them there and was able to, understand, okay, this is how we're different, but we're still the same. And then also help explain a little bit about the American culture that I knew to them. And then in return, kind of like we switched. So it's just like, okay, what's going on in Ghana? How do I do this? Okay, bet. I know this, but let me tell you how to do the ducky. So it's just like, again, I think it is important for anyone here to remember how we felt in some of these spaces. And maybe if we notice others, reach out and do the same. And also that with this being written in 2014, I think that this was right before, I say, African culture was really kind of mainstream within the States. Because growing up, it was a lot of what you see in the article of, the derogatory terms. I don't know if anyone else who grew up here had heard the infamous African booty scratcher term before. It was something that, of course, some of the kids would call anybody who was African at the time, growing up here in Cincinnati or growing up in Cincinnati. But that was before it really became somewhat cool. I think that African culture has become more mainstream and has become more positive. It's become cool to be from Africa. It's cool to have another culture or be able to speak another language or to be able to trace your ancestors, not only, let's say the last 400 years, but, kind of have a lineage before that, because that is something I think that within even the Black culture in the States is really sought after. So I think that within the diaspora is kind of one step next that we may know. So within the more recent times, I feel like the opportunities haven't been as more negative as maybe when it was, before it became a little bit more mainstream, but I could understand how it is still a crisis for those people who are somewhat in the middle and trying to navigate it. But I was like, 2014 was really before, all of the Afro beats became cool, before everybody was shoki, like, all of that wasn't as popular. But I think that now within like 2020, 6 years has passed since this. I wouldn't necessarily say that the experiences are any easier, but I do see the opportunities to have, I guess, more of a community or an openness from the different communities to kind of welcome in and not be in a place where they feel like, I'm alienated and I don't have anyone, but rather I'm different and this is why it's celebrated.
Yes, and I agree with you on that note. It's making me think about what has really brought us to the forefront. what is creating this awareness of our presence? It's the community. Is like there's power when we come together, that togetherness. Why is Black Lives Matter so prominent right now? Why are we talking about it? Why are white counterparts now interested in having a conversation about how can we help? What can we do? I remember when all of this was going on with George Floyd and at work, you know, innocently you would see even our like white coworkers say, how can we help? What can we do? Like that innocent act. And it just helps you to see how sometimes, and it relates back to this story of Norway trying to erase the fact that slavery ever happened. Like, how do you see what you don't acknowledge? You know what I mean? Like the first step is acknowledging that there is a problem, or we've been involved in this, or there's this issue there. Now let's go forward. And how do we bridge the gap? How do we start coming together? How do we start relating? Start with, how about when I'm the only Black person in your workplace, invite me to lunch. Like, you know, invite me to lunch. Or if I'm the only one that's Black there. And you just talked about it. I think one person talked about, you know, when we get to places, we get drawn to people who look like us. I think for Mr. Castaneda, predominantly white school. It looks like there's background noise. Who went to a predominantly white school, they would automatically gravitate towards each other. And if he doesn't find a community for himself, it might be a little bit difficult because of that cultural context. Like all of us build our walls around our culture and what we're used to, right? And it doesn't really, like, it doesn't help to like break out and communicate and like come together. So I think that's something that, you know, we're needing to be aware of, but again, we need to build our community and then, you know, create awareness about our existence, about our community, and be able to feel comfortable, even when you're in between, feel comfortable about where you are. And this reminds me of a friend of mine. Her daughter is less than 5. I think at 5 years old, her daughter, like, she lives in a predominantly white neighborhood and an environment, and her daughter goes to a predominantly white school. So just, you already know this is more like a preschool. And her daughter came home one day and was like, Mom, I just wish there were more brown girls like me in my class that can play with me. This girl is so beautiful. Like, for her to come back and say, and she's actually, you know, light skinned to us, you know, Africans, she's light skinned, you know, she should be somewhere. You know, we talked about our skin too, you know, how, oh, you know, you want to, you know, you're beautiful. It's not because you're not beautiful or whatever. But I can just, from that statement, hear her almost saying, am I not good enough? Am I not someone that I can play with? Or like, you can easily tell that no one's relating with her and it's getting to her. She wasn't 5 yet at that time. And I just like, oh my God. Even the church they went to was predominantly white. Everything was white. And she opened her eyes, like my friend was like, we weren't thinking about all of these things. We don't know what to do. We want to help her. And it's great to realize that very early. So I like how Ms. Celestina started that conversation. I'd like to hear from parents here and how we're helping our kids. How we're helping our kids navigate their identity, because they're not yet at that age of using social media, right? How are we helping them to have that sense of belonging, or even open, like you can't change their schools. One thing my friend changed was she started going to a more international church, or a church that had, you know, more diversity or something like that. And I think the child still goes to the same school. So how are we helping our children to have that sense of belonging? So that way they are still able to get rooted in their African roots and affinity. But how are we doing that? I'd like to hear, even if you're a big sister or a big brother or something like that. Yes, Mr.
Yeah, I think before Sorry comes in, this is Prince. Sorry, I know I'm glad that you brought this up. And also APNET has a mentorship program for the youth as well. So I think we want young kids who are going through all these issues to be at least, let's find ways to reach out to them. So we have a program where we always mentor young adults, kids who are actually elementary or college level. So if there's any way that we can help as APNET, there's a huge resources. We are a very strong group, diverse group with different backgrounds and from across the continent. So I think we can help. So any parents who are here who think your kids is going through that issue, our group here and other groups should be a resource, right? I mean, don't feel shy to reach out to us. And I think we are always there to support you as well. So I'll let you finish your talk, Sally. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes,
thank you.
yes, I was going to share that. Thank you for sharing. And I was going to add that we as parents, I'm a parent, I have three boys. So you can imagine having 3 Black boys in America. And just what I have been doing personally is every time, this is my first time, I'm new in Cincinnati, and I heard of APNET. I think I saw an app on LinkedIn and I just follow. So what I'm doing is I have to talk. We do the talk at home. And we always have those little African event community. You start with the little community, you start exposing them and start doing little thing at home that sometimes we take for granted, but that goes a long way. I speak French. My kids don't speak French. They understand, but they won't even try. And what I've been doing is go from like saying the prayer in French, teaching them little things like that. And if there is a community event, I try to take them with me and try to force them to mingle. It's kind of like forcing because they always want to mingle with their friend in school. But right now with the movement going around the world, is that the kids are being aware. My oldest grew up not knowing the color difference, but the little brother that are 13 and 15, they know now. They are so aware that, okay, when they're going to school, they know that, okay, they're different, that they have to be careful. They have to behave a certain way. And if we don't continue to build the community like this one, the association like this one, if we have a youth group, that would be great, because then we can start bringing them, because now they're realizing. My oldest, before, when you take him to African event, if he doesn't see his classmate, he will be like, oh, I don't know nobody here. So he will learn how to connect. But now it's different, because the little ones that are growing now with the movement, they're seeing that everywhere they go and they see the brown color, they want to mingle. So as parents, we need to be taking them to this event a little bit more, expose them to the brown a little bit more outside of the community where we live. Because we may be living in a suburb where you barely see color, but if there is an African group somewhere, there's an African event, take them with you. I think that's what I'm trying to do. And not saying that it's easy, it is challenging. So, thank you.
Great.
Hello.
It'll pay off. It'll pay off. Yes.
Yeah, this is Cedric. I was listening to everyone's contribution. I was listening to everyone's contribution, and I think one aspect that we tend to forget is that other people, I mean, those who are not Black, sometimes they don't know how to approach us. They don't understand. So I think there's also an education issue here. We need to see us from the eyes, right? Look at us the way they look at us and see how we can either explain or help them understand our background, understand our culture, because it's not, by default, it's not their fault because of what they learned, the way education is set in this country. They don't necessarily they don't necessarily try to understand outside the US. The education, if you see the curriculum, is based on the US. Most, when they go out of the US, they stop in Western Europe. They don't try to study any other part of the world. So sometimes for instructor, for parents, and also for students, it's not their fault if they don't know how to treat us or if they don't know how to interact with us. It's how they were educated. So it's also our job to try to help them by looking at us from outside, right? To try to understand what we can do to help them. And that goes with what Funke and Celestine was saying. We need to we said in French, valoriser. What's the English word for that? We need to promote our own culture, right? We need to understand who we are as person and be proud of that, be happy about that. And if we are happy about who we are happy about our specificity, then we understand that. I will take one small example with my daughter. I have my little one, she's 5. She started kindergarten this year. She went to school, and my wife, like those African braid, right? She had the first week of class, she has those braid. And she went to school, she came back, she said she wanted to cut it. We said, why? Because she said that her friend said that it's not smooth. Like the young white girl hair, right? She said that her hair is not smooth, it doesn't look good. Right? But before that, she was happy with those long, those long braids we made, girls have in Africa, yes. She was, that was the best thing, the best haircut she could have, she could ask for. But after that first day, she said, no, she doesn't want that anymore. So we had to discuss with her, make her understand, okay, your hair is different because you are different. Because of we had to explain using a word that kid can understand to make her understand, oh, although I am a girl, she's a girl, but we are different. And different is not it's not really bad. And we try to use kid words to have her understand that, okay, next time she need to explain to her, she need to tell her friend that her hair is not smooth, but she likes it the way it is. So I don't know how that went in class, but she's happy now. I don't know if she did that. I don't know if the teacher helped in class, but we have to try to understand that. Yeah, it's not easy for them also, as it's not easy for us. But I think we also have some responsibility in trying to educate other people around us in who we are and how we see the world and how we define social interaction.
Yes, thank you so much. That is huge. I love that because you hear a lot of dynamics in that. There's need for education. There's need for education, but before you can educate, you have to be grounded in who you are. You have to really build your identity. And what is it about building that identity? Mr. Cedric is building that identity for his child already and letting her know, yeah, it's okay for your hair to be different, giving her words of affirmation, to be comfortable in her own skin, wear her hair the way she wants, and still not feel bad about that other person because the other person doesn't understand. That's the kind of individual he's raising to be able to stand up to situations that seem like racist situation and turn it around to be an educational situation. And I just want to throw a mix into this conversation about, before getting to that point of you being comfortable to even educate, for a lot of us who are immigrants. So for me, I moved here when I was 15. And coming here from a predominantly Black country to get exposed to an era I'd never heard about racism. I'd never been treated differently. Being in an environment where you see a lot of white people, and then you see some Black people that are not quite African and they're not quite white, and you start trying to put all of that together and feel like, where do I belong in this whole community? That whole culture shock is a big thing in the first place. Because I don't know how many years to get over that and then start understanding and trying to figure out, where do you sit? Where do you fit? How do you relate? How do you start bringing yourself out? So you in that position where you're learning first, and that's coming from Maddie's story, right? Maddie had to be in that position where, and probably Mo, who said she just got here, can relate with that too. Now trying to see, how do I fit in? Okay, the way they say my name, let me make sure they say it the way that they are comfortable with, right? So if you see my name, you automatically want to call me Funky. I don't want to seem all of that dynamics, the little things. Oh, you're from Africa. Do you guys sleep with elephants? Did you eat with lions and things like that? You first of all, you're thinking how can a human even think that way? before you start realizing that, it's what they've been told. And you like, before you get to that point where you're educating, you're already thinking, you're like, no, this doesn't make sense. That you're already in that like defensive mode or like retracting mode, like, no, we're not having this conversation, but for us in retrospect, we understand the culture now. But when we first got into that situation, it wasn't quite the same. So like, it's a process. And I love that APNET has programming in place. I think first education needs to come in. In my church, I remember telling one of my priests, I'm like, we need to have education for people who are coming to this country for the first time. Don't wait till they're going through this hard time. Have an orientation, welcome to America orientation. Let's start talking about it. Let people like Charlene, Christina, and Prince come together and talk to them. Hey, these are the realities. These are the things you should expect, but this is what you should prepare your mind for. So they can know the context of the culture they're coming in, and it helps them to feel more comfortable rather than feeling, down and dejected about certain comments. Now we're working, we can have conversations at work and still not get offended, but still get our points across and get ourselves on the table, like get our culture out there and gain respect for our culture, because that's more important than anything else. Gain respect for our culture, not for today, not for this generation, but for our generations to come. So I'd like to hear some of your thoughts about that culture shock part, and just how you were able to find your ground or find your identity over time.
I would like. Oh, go ahead, Charlene.
Go ahead. You got it.
No. Go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just going to say that it is a lot, I think, from both sides coming into an environment that there are ways we can prepare, but there are still going to be, I think, those moments and those times where it's just like, I had no idea. Even with some preparation before my current position, I recruited international students from sub-Saharan Africa for the University of Cincinnati. And I'm actually happy to see Mo, because I worked with her, and working and sharing just a little bit about the university. You have to share a little bit about the culture and how not only the school is, but how the city is and how the states are. And some of those conversations were a lot of like myth busting, like, yeah, I know everybody the same way, vice versa, that, let's say people might have questions like, do you ride elephants? We can have those same thoughts coming in. So kind of using that moment of saying, hey, have you ever received a question like, do you ride an elephant? Same thing, like not everywhere in the States is going to have, either a New York theme or a New York setting, or it's not, it's not just one place, and every type of community is different. Even within communities, you have smaller groups and things like that. But there was one thing that I think that you said about the names. I think that is a great opportunity to share not only about your culture, but help maintain it by sharing how to say your name to people when you might hear it differently. But with that being said, Cecina, go ahead.
So what I was going to say was, I think when it comes to sort of trying to figure out the struggle between, because depending on which side of the spectrum you are, like whether you were, born and raised here versus you came here at very young versus when you're like a teen versus when you're an adult, there's a whole different spectrum of and how you deal with it. I came when I was in high school, so a lot of the questions were, do you sleep with monkeys on trees? Is this the first time you wore clothes? Just, and then, from the lion to the tiger to the everything. So for me, that was very frustrating and very angering space to be in. But it was funny when my brother came and him and I would chat, and he would like, let me tell you what happened. And he would be like, yeah, my some kids asked me if I slept on trees, and he was like, oh yeah, I did actually. I have a monkey pet, and he taught me how to do math or calculus, and I sat on the lion's back to go to school. So for him, he sort of spun it into like a comedy. So and for me, when he was telling me that, I was like, don't do that. That's not right. You're feeding the stereotype. And he's like, but I mean, he's like, that's the way he wants to deal with it, instead of having to teach folk that that's not how it works, right? So I say that to say, I really do want to hear from a lot of folks, because we do have, how many folks do we have on the, I've only heard from Cedric as far as men go, and I would like to hear some men sort of really participating, jumping in and saying something from their experience. That's one thing I wanted to sort of point out. So I'm gonna.
Okay. So I can, oops. I can say I can add something. I came to the US already as an adult, as a young adult. So for me, the integration was kind of quite easy, because somehow I have the self-confidence of and know who I am, and so proud of my culture. If we have a potluck at work, I'm bringing some fried plantain. I'm bringing some African dishes always. Everywhere I go, they know me for that. So when we have a potluck, they know that they will have some African treat. Either it's beignet or whatsoever. But the challenge is to pass that to my children. That's where my challenge is. For me, oh no, when I walk in the meeting, I sit at the table. I don't sit at the back. And I make sure that I remind everybody where I am from when I'm introducing myself. So before you start making some fun joke or whatsoever, well, and I'm going to respond and turn it a little way like so sensei, and use it as a comedy. And the way I translate that to my children is, there would have been time when my son came home and said, oh, somebody said I have a big head or something. I was just like, oh, really? Somebody said that? I would try to turn that and use positive word to empower him. I said, well, the next time when you see you have a big head, tell him, yes, I know that I have a big head. That's why I'm smarter than you. Little things like that. Yes. When you use that with little kids, it's little girl, you use empower words. So as African parent, the way we can help our kids is first by controlling the word that we use toward them. Use positive word, correct them with love, not with harsh word, because the harsh word that we give them, and then they go to school, they receive other harsh word, it makes them confused, and they think nobody loves them. That's how they call it. Oh, for them, acceptance is love. They'll be like, oh, nobody loved me in school, and at home, nobody loved me. So as parent, I always, when I have the opportunity to speak with few parents or few mom, I like, we have to correct our kids, but we have to be careful the word that we use. And for young professional, when you walk in that meeting, sit at the table. If they have other chair at the back, don't sit at the back. Participate. Participate. Be comfortable, and on you being to school or you are educated, you have to own that. Own it. It's not a privilege. Don't be ashamed because you're educated. That's just, you have worked hard for that. So that's usually my message. I hope I'm speaking to somebody.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Estina. So as we wrap up this session, I have about 2 more minutes. But there are points I'd like to make. Sorry, I didn't come here to try to do any promotion or anything, but this conversation just reminds me of a book my cousin just wrote. It's actually about a young girl whose African grandma, how African grandma empowered her, even through the struggles of finding her identity in school, having her African outfit, identity, and all of that. She would come back home dejected, and grandma will reinforce her. I just bought it for my kids. She just launched this book a few weeks ago. So this just kind of brings it to mind, like, oh wow, she's really cutting into that cultural problem or issues, having conversation. This even helps, like, even her white friends to understand more about our African culture. The title of the book is ARA, A-R-A, by Tolu Lopagai. If I find that link, I'll send to print just to help parents. Like, read it with your kids. I have a 3-year-old and an 18-month-old. I got the book for them. Want to read it together. So that way, it's a way for us to start educating our little kids. So that came to mind. I think it's going to help you. This is not to help my cousin sell her book, but it's really about the topic we're writing. So I apologize to the APNET crowd, program coordinators. That wasn't my intention. I just thought it went with this conversation. But the other thing I would like for us to make sure we talk about is Neyma's story. Neyma is her dad is African and her mom is white, and we already know. There are people around us. That are biracial like that, and of African descent. I want us to kind of talk about this because we form a community for them. And Neyma talked about how she didn't feel among, even in her family, the white family, Black family, and where does she really belong? And I think we all have a role to play in the way we accept ourselves. So we talk about racism, right? But even from the context of where we're coming from in Africa, there's still that tribalism that's going on. There's still that, the child, when they're coming together. So we're getting a community for our kids, right? So are the mixed kids, are they also feeling among when they come amongst us? I think this is a challenge to us as an organization to think about this as we're creating that sense of identity for our children, to also be all inclusive. So that way we're not bringing up the narrative that we're fighting against or we're trying to overcome, right? So I just want to throw that out to you. If you have final comments about this, I want to hear our men talk. Please wrap up the session with your manly voices. Let's hear from you. This is not about us alone. I mean, should I just go around and find somebody and just call you randomly? Or you can jump, but not Prince, because I know Prince would save the day. I mean, and he can talk too, he can save the day. But please, man, I know Mr. Cedric talked about his experience as a parent. Can our men also just wrap this up for us? Talk about your own experience or your thoughts about this conversation as we wrap it up in less than 1 minute. You're muted, Sat. I think maybe you're trying to talk because you came on camera, so I'm not sure. Mr. Ken, were you gonna weigh in? Oh, you came on camera. You can just weigh in now. I mean, you can't escape that now. I see your face.
No, thank you, Are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
My name is Ken, and I'm not a parent. I work with the Catholic Church, so I'm an ordained minister here in East Tennessee. Very rural, typically white American. And so I work with different ages of church groups. I work with the young people, high school going kids. I work with adults for the church. And what I try to do with my own experience, because sometimes we can really judge these people harshly, but they really don't know anything about Africa. Most of them think Africa is a country or a little village somewhere. And so the platform I use in my ministry, if I'm preaching at the altar, I try to use examples, African examples, whether it is African wisdom, to be able to teach them, I think I should say. And so there is a growing appreciation of who we are. They realize when you speak and you speak in sense, they realize, oh, then we are the same. Oh, we never thought of that, And so that way it's a teaching process for the people that listen to us. And I'm just so excited. I live in a county that I'm the only Black person. And so if I went and bought something there, they'll be, oh, are you the Black man working in the Catholic Church in town? I'm like, yeah. Not because I'm a celebrity or anything, but just precisely because I'm the only person. And so you express yourself, and as Miss Sally Ngasa said, let people know who we are, like we're in this together. But sometimes I think it's because many folks in this country have never left, where they were born and raised. For us, we have left somewhere. And so we have something more to offer. Not because we are better or we are more than them, but we have something to offer. And so that's the platform from which I operate. And my ministry makes meaning to me and also to people that listen to us. I mean, I give you an example of the Catholic Church. Right now, the Catholic Church in this country depends on people coming from outside. And so I don't think the folks that I'm working with will be like, I don't think we want him, because they won't have mass. We are here to support them and for them to support us and to accept us. And it doesn't make us step up on the pedestal, but it also makes them humble that we are members, diverse, but of the same human race. That will be my input.
Do you feel, sorry to, I have one just very interesting question. Do you feel that you have this burden of representing Africa and Africans because you are the only representative there?
A whole lot, because I easily get impatient with the idea that how will you fail to know that, and the pressure to be able to answer questions, some that are asked, some that are implied, and just the whole. I worked at the University of Tennessee Medical Hospital, which is in Knoxville Diocese, as a chaplain intern, and just there are patients, with all due respect, that wouldn't even want me to get into their rooms because they thought I spoke with a thick accent. Or there are people who, but we are different. Americans speak differently. They have an accent. They just don't call it an accent. But for me, it sounds like something different. And so that would be an accent. And so every time you speak with an accent, where are you from? And that's okay. But sometimes it just gets too much to be able to. And then I only represent Kenya. I can't speak for Congo. I can't speak for other places. But I think I can be the little representation that God wants me to be, and be that contribution in the bigger world.
That is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, Seth. See, we didn't even know you were a minister, so I guess God wanted you to share a word with us. But that is interesting. That is interesting how is representing the African race, even his Blackness in that environment. Like, okay, I'm a Black person. I'm a human being. I have to help them understand that, hey, I'm human like you. I can think, I can write, I have intellect, I have all of that. And in the midst of all of that, it's kind of hard. Sometimes it's draining for you to understand your existence and identity. I like the way he finished up this thing about he's only Kenyan, right? And he can't speak for, someone from Congo or somewhere else, and talk about our diversity as African people amongst ourselves. How are we holding ourselves up? How are we really creating our community? Are you within that community creating a small niche of community and almost creating those segregation amongst yourself? And again, this is a challenge for us all as we wrap up this today. I'm Nigerian, so I don't want to relate with the Ghanaian jollof rice and the jollof wars. Sorry, Charlie, I didn't go there. I wasn't trying to, promote the jollof war, but it's become such a social media trending topic, Nigerian jollof rice and the Ghanaian jollof rice, which is the best. But really, we're African people all together. Me, you, Sustaina, Charlene, everybody, Minister Ken, Prince, from wherever you are, even for anyone that is American, that is Black, like we're all human race for American people, for like wherever we are, just like being able to bring ourselves to the table. I like how he said we have that advantage. We do, honestly. Like you would notice that people where you are, not even people leaving one country to the other, people have never left their city or their town to go to the next town. So you have an advantage rather than downplaying yourself, because then they get to learn from us. Again, but we need to build our identity for us to be able to come out and educate and represent. And I was about to take you to the religious place and say, oh, and I pray God help us all. So on that note, I wrap up the session. Thank you all for contributing to that. Thank you very much. And that wraps up my session. I'll give it back to Shauna.
Thank you, Funke, for leading us through that discussion. That article really, again, I think hit home for a lot of people, where we all were able to relate to it in one way or another. But again, thank you, and thank you. And thank you to everyone who shared a little bit about either their experience or their thoughts on this topic, because again, this is what's going to help make that community so much stronger, help create this really strong community because of these different diverse groups that we have and the different diversity that we bring from our own experiences and walks of life. But with that being said, DJ Garlic, are you ready? Because now what we'll do is, with every celebration, have some music, be able to unmute all of everyone and continue just networking, learning more about each other, talking about how in reality there is only one type of great jollof rice, but that's neither here nor there. It comes from Ghana. And
Before you